What's up, guys? We're back for another top 10 list. Today we are going over the top 10 worst contracts in the TMJFB league. One thing I gotta say before we get into the list is I'm actually really impressed with you guys. Normally there's at least 4 or 5 just gimmies in this category where it's like Jeff Samardzij's, why is he making $13? You know, this guy's brutal. There's usually at least 5 of them. So some of these I really had to go in and do some digging. So really your top 6 on this list, they're not that bad of contracts. They're just things that are holding somebody back slightly. So really good job this year. And I think that that's what's going to make this year's draft really interesting. There's not that many bad contracts and bad cap out there. So, with that said, we might as well jump right into the list. First one, I'm putting Eduardo Rodriguez. He's a tricky one. So he could be a fine contract still. If he can recover and come back and pitch this year, then he very well could be, and probably will be, worth the $8. The obvious big question is he actually going to come back and pitch? I don't know. I haven't heard much. I talked about it already with his health issues. If he doesn't pitch, this is definitely deserving to be on the top 10. If he does, though, you know what? I'm fine with this. I'm fine with this contract. So we'll see what happens with him. I hope that he's fine. Next one is Odor. Not really that bad of a contract. 1 year, $210. You know, it's a cuttable contract. It's not one that you really want because he's not very useful. I know Weist always says, like, he does just enough for me to keep him each year. And I don't know if that's going to be true from last year. I'm thinking he probably gets the snip this year. But $1 or a 1 year, $210 is not a bad contract. Again, going back to how good you guys were this last year. But it is a contract that is chewing into his cap, and he goes right along with the exact same contract for the exact same team in Josh James. It's pretty much the exact same situation. Literally, they make the same amount of money, and it's only 1 year. So this is not that bad. However, if you combine the two together, it's $420. You know, that's a couple flyers, that's a couple prospects maybe that you might want to buy later in the draft. It is value taken away, and they do start to add up. Collectively, they probably belong on the list. Individually, there's not enough people to put on the list, so here you go. Alright, moving on. This one's a controversy, probably. Jason Dominguez. So, if you remember last year's draft when Tom was bidding for him, I was actually bidding for him as well, and he was like 16 years old at the time, and I was still in this part of the draft where it was kind of like I'm not sure what my strat is. Am I gonna wait? Am I punting? Because initially I was punting, right, last year, and so when Jason came around, I was still in punt mode. So Tom was going up to $1, obviously, to start, and I kept hitting him with the 1 year. So he would say, you know, $1.50, and I'd say 1 year, $1.50. I was trying to maximize Jason's dollar amount if somebody was to get him long term, and if I ended up getting him for a year at $3, or I guess I stopped, but if I was to get him at 1 year for $1.70, then who cares? I'm punting anyway. Next year I'll know who he is a little bit more and whether he's worth the money or not. So what ended up happening, obviously, is Tom gets Jason at $13, or at 13 years, $2. That's a lot of cheese for somebody who's that far away still from playing any Major League Baseball. I think Weist had just texted that he just turned 17. So even if he's an absolute stud, he probably won't see the field for 2-3 years, probably. And so really this is looking at maybe more like a 10-year $2, and I don't know. There's too many unknowns right now with Jason for me to feel comfortable with this contract. So we'll see what happens, but he's going to fall on this list for me, and he might fall on it next year too. He could be terrible, and this could be just a total waste. This could be prospects that he's not getting by having him instead. Back to Tom, and I'll probably botch the name. Jose Urquidy? I don't know if I got that right. So, last year, he was not good. I think he only pitched in 7 games, and he just didn't look right. 2 years ago, he was good. He's still young. I think he's 25 years old. So he's still young, and he still has upside, and I still think he's going to pitch. But I don't think Tom was looking at he was looking for more results than what he got. It's given him $3.15 for so long. So we'll see if he pans out, but as of now, he's firmly on this list. Alright, next we get into our favorite. I included cut contracts in all this as well, because that's how deep I had to go into finding some of these guys. A.J. Reed. If you don't know who A.J. Reed is, he was, I think, ranked 5th one year, and he had just come off hitting 35 bombs. I was going to say dongs, 35 dongs, 35 bombs. I should have said dongs. And the year before that, he hit like another 30. So he had like 3 years of hitting 30 plus dongs in the minors. So he got a 7-year, $2 contract. You know, kind of similar to what we do with a lot of these guys. And it didn't work at all. He just wasn't good. I don't know what it was. He couldn't hit Major League pitching. I don't know. And as of right now, A.J. Reed is cut, so obviously Jeff can't use him. But A.J. Reed no longer plays baseball. He retired. And so even if somehow we change the rules to allow cut players to come back onto teams, which we will never do, still can't use him because he doesn't play baseball anymore. So for 3 more years, $2, I mean, again, that's a prospect that you could have had, another good bench player you could have had. It's potential lost. Next, moving into Nomar Mazara, recently signed by the Tigers, actually, for a couple mil. So this guy was another one of these people who's supposed to be an up-and-coming, good hitter, and he went to Chicago last year, and it didn't work. And it hasn't worked for him. I mean, I still think there's potential in his bat, but at 5 years, $2, this contract's getting uglier. Luckily, he signed with a team. Detroit's not an ideal spot for him in terms of the field, but it is in terms of him playing, because he should play every day. I don't know, we'll see what happens with him, but for 5 more years, that's not looking so hot right now. Number 3 is probably, is clearly the best player on this list, so far at least. Christian Yelich, we kind of went over it before, 2450. After the year he had last year, if he went into auction this year, I think he'd be making 12, maybe. I mean, he was not very good. Obviously, people think he's going to bounce back, but I don't think there's any chance he bounces back to what a $24.50 player makes. Like I said, I went over this in great detail in the rankings, so I don't really want to spend too much time on Yelich, but this contract is really hurting, because, I mean, if you put Trout in there right now at $24.50, I'd feel a lot better, but Yelich is not Trout, and I don't think he's going to be Trout again this year, so that's a major handicap right now. Next, Frankie Montas. 2019, he won 9 games. I think it was 9-3 or 9-1. Looked fantastic. Plays for Oakland and had a great year and big park, and all the things made sense to give him a contract like Vinny did. It was 3 years at $750. It made total sense. It's not that much money. He pitched really well. The problem is, last year he did not. He did not look like the guy from 2019. And now Vinny's kind of paying the price here. So $750 is quite a bit when you're thinking about going into this year's draft. I would rather have the $750 than Frankie Montas. So this one right now for me is the second worst contract in the league, which again, it's not that bad comparatively to previous years. So maybe he bounces back, but as of right now, not so sure. Number 1 is obvious. I thought about not putting Noah on as number 1, but I can't. He's obviously number 1. I don't really see him pitching much this year unless it's late season. They're going to baby him. I'd rather have Noah for the playoffs than I would some random games, rushed random games. They don't need to. I think the Mets are going to be good. I think that they're likely to make the playoffs, and I don't think there's any reason to rush him. 16-11 is a massive amount of dead cap. It's not completely dead, but it's basically dead cap. So I know that structure's looking to move it. I don't know if it's possible. And this is, of all of the players on this list, the biggest handicap by far. I mean, AJ Reed is only making $2. Yes, it's hurting him. It's hurting Orlando, and it's going to hurt him for a few more years. But it's only $2. It's going to be 6 total. It's not that big of a deal. Even Montes is, he could come back and pitch well. He's going to pitch this season unless he gets hurt. And so it's not completely dead. Noah's contract is essentially dead, and it is a very large contract. So there wasn't really much getting around this problem at Noah being first. So that's it, guys. That's the list of the worst contracts in our league right now. That's not so bad. It's really not. Like I said, as somebody who's owned a lot of Dontrelle Willis-like contracts, this is not bad. So, hope you enjoyed. We'll probably do some more top 10s. I don't know. We'll see. Have a good one, guys.